I think working with brands for anyone is a great way to build a following because the brands will share your photos with their fans, and that could reach a whole new type of demographic for you and a whole new group of followers. So, I mean, I may be biased, but I think it's a great way to build a following.
That was Mairead Dunphy, and this is episode 97 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. I am your host, and this is the Chopped Podcast. You know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. What are we doing here? Well, each week my goal is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging, maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Today, I am talking to Mairead Dunphy. She is the Associate Manager of Communications for Stonyfield. That means that she works with bloggers. I mean, obviously she has other things that she does as well, but one of her jobs is working with bloggers. And you know, we've had several bloggers on this podcast talking about working with brands, but obviously it's always been from the blogger perspective. And I just thought today it might be interesting to hear about the exchange between bloggers and brands from the brand's perspective. And so that's why I asked Mairead to be on the show today. And she was so gracious and she said yes. And I'm so excited to share that with you. So, you know, that's the thing about a story. It has two sides, right? So we can easily think of that story from our side of the exchange where, you know, we're the blogger and we're working with the brands and how do we do that? But I always feel like, you know, when you really understand both sides of the story, I think you have a better idea overall, even of your own role in that exchange. I just think it's kind of important. I mean, I really like to have both sides of the story before I jump to any conclusions. Maybe you don't want to ask Sean to confirm that because I'm sure there might be times when he would disagree with that statement. Oh, husbands, they can be such a pain, right? Anyway, so I have to give a big apology to Carrie Ann Cheney because in the middle of the interview, for some reason, I couldn't think of the name of her site. I recorded today's interview on a Monday, and so I'm blaming Monday brain on that. Carrie Ann, I'm so sorry. Her site's name is Oh Sweet Basil, and if you have an interest in hearing the perspective of working with brands from a blogger side of the story, go back to episode 75 and listen to my interview with Carrie Ann. It's pretty amazing. A lot of people loved it, so I think you might find something you like there too. Okay, you ready for some fun? Because I believe in sharing the love. And since we had one of the most fabulous swag bags I have ever seen at a food blogging conference, and I'm serious, I happened to just save one just for this podcast episode so you could have a chance to win one for yourself. So it's full of goodies from Stonyfield, Mediavine, Bob's Red Mill, Justin's Nut Butter, Oxo, Nuts.com, Nature's Path, Navitas, Sprouts, Qdoba, Cardful, and so much more. So I know you want this bag, right? So your next question is, how do you win? I think it's a great question. Okay, you have the option of two things. One, you could leave a review of this podcast on iTunes, or you could subscribe to the Chopped Podcast between October 5th and next Tuesday, October 11th at 10 a.m. Central Time. If you leave a review, it's easy. I'll leave a link on the show notes page to show you how to do it. If you subscribe, however, it's great, but podcasters don't always know when folks subscribe. In fact, I don't think we ever know. So you'll need to leave a comment on the show notes page of this episode saying something like, I don't know, I subscribe to the Chopped Podcast. Do that between now and October 11th at 10 a.m. Central. And if you do that, of course, I'll do my happy dance. That's what I do all the time anyway. And I will add your name to this random list and we'll select one lucky person to win the swag bag. It'll be in the mail the day after. And it's so easy. It's so easy. I'm so excited. Okay, without further ado, let's go straight to that feature interview with Mairead Dunphy. So put on those earbuds, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Mairead Dunphy of Stonyfield Organics on the show today. Hey Mairead, welcome to the Chopped Podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on the show. And it was really good to see you last week at the Chopped Conference. I was so thrilled to have Stonyfield as a partner sponsor at Chopped Conference. And I really feel like, you know, your contributions and you being there and the things that you brought, it just made the conference just so special.
Oh, we had a blast, and we had a great time just meeting everyone. So
yeah, It's a really cool event, I think, because it's just, I think it's kind of different than some food blogging conferences, at least that I've been to, because everything is right there all together.
Absolutely, yeah. Very, very local, very easy to get to.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good. So I was just, really looking forward to talking with you today about, really it's about the brand perspective of working with bloggers. And I think that's a conversation that people are going to find really interesting. But I was wondering if first you could give everybody a little bit of, information about your background and what led you to be working at Stonyfield.
Sure. Well, hello, I'm Mairead Dunphy. I'm born and raised in New Hampshire, and I love it here. I'm the Associate Manager of Communications for Stonyfield, which means I help manage general PR for Stonyfield, as well as work with influencers, and I get the opportunity to be a co-manager of our blogger clubs. And I mean, I've always loved Stonyfield. I actually used to do yogurt tours here as a little girl with my mom.
Really?
And so I thought it was just kismet when I was lucky enough to find a position right out of college. So it kind of all full circle.
It was like meant to be, right?
Yeah, it had to have been,
Yeah. So I have to ask you about your name because it's kind of unique. It must be Irish, huh?
Yeah, my dad is from Ireland, and so he gave me and my brothers lovely, unique names that no one else has. So, I always am like, it's Mairead, like parade, so that people know.
How to say it? Okay, I have to ask then, what's your brother's name?
Oh, there's Seamus, Sean Michael, and Rory, so...
And I imagine it's
those
Sean S-E-A-N.
Those are hard to double in S-E-A-N. They're hard to find your double in a roster at school. So
that's kind of nice, right? You're very unique.
It is nice. It is.
Although I guess from the other perspective, like if you had this name that blends with everybody else and then you do something really stupid and then they're thinking, oh, is it that Christine Johnson or is it, this Christine Johnson? But, with a name like Mairead, you can't get away with anything, right?
No, there's only one to blame,
yeah, that's right. Unless you're in Ireland, then it's probably a different story.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe I'll just go over there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm just curious because you mentioned going on these yogurt tours and you mentioned, really landing this job at Stonyfield right out of college and how excited you were. So do you have a passion for food?
I do. I mean, I've always been interested in food, and I mean, I started being a vegetarian at age 11, so I always had to look for other ways to eat protein, and that's when I really got into health, and I got into organics in college, and so it's easy for me to love this brand.
Yes, and I can even say as a vegan that I love this brand because your vegan yogurt, oh my goodness, it is so good and creamy. Oh, I love it.
It is. I mean, I even eat it sometimes. So
yes. It's just amazing. So it's nice to have both vegan and vegetarian options.
Yeah, so good to hear.
Yeah. We had several people on the podcast who talk about, the concept of working with brands, but they're mostly talking from the perspective, obviously from the blogger's perspective, or you mentioned the influencer. I think those are kind of interchangeable, right? Blogger and influencer. Mm-hmm. Okay. So just to clarify for everybody, when we say influencer or blogger, we're meaning the same thing. But, obviously we've had a lot of people who've talked from the perspective of the influencer. And I just thought it might be interesting for people to hear kind of what goes on from the brand's perspective. So I was wondering if you could just kind of talk about maybe some of the initiatives that you've worked with at Stonyfield, or maybe even other companies that you've heard of or whatever, that the perspectives of the kind of different programs that they work with.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, well, every company is different, but here at Stonyfield, we actually have 2 blogger clubs, and one is called the Clean Plate Club, it's a club comprised of mostly recipe-focused bloggers, and then we also have the Yo-Getters, who are parenting and lifestyle bloggers,
yes.
Which I love that name.
Yes, that's very good.
Yeah, and so it's basically about 80 bloggers in each club, and we work with them on a month-to-month basis to create different posts and recipes. And we also work with bloggers outside of our blogger clubs on certain campaigns for new products or on recipe development. So we love working with bloggers, and our whole marketing team knows that. So we always put them first if we ever have any ideas. I
see. So it's kind of nice to have this group that you can cater to, but at the same time, you want to step outside of that sometimes for different launches or things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very cool. So, okay, so I've heard some bloggers, they think of brands as kind of, I don't know, like singularly focused. Like brands are mostly, this is like the stereotype that I'm hearing from a lot of bloggers. Brands are mostly interested in working with bloggers or influencers who have a ton of traffic. And I'm just curious if that's been your perspective. I mean, we had the panel at Chopped Conference where we talked about brands and how they work with bloggers. And it seems like the notion is that that's not necessarily true. It's just like sometimes a hang up that bloggers have. And is that kind of your perception as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, high traffic, you say it to any company and they're going to be interested in a blog. But we work with so many different types of bloggers with all different types of traffic, especially in our blogger clubs. And we're mostly just interested in working with them because their posts reach so many different types of readers in general. And that's mostly, I mean, that's a big part of what we're about. We're just trying to reach different types of people and trying to get our healthy products out there. But when we're focused on like a certain type of blogger, it's more for a campaign type of thing or to fit kind of their lifestyle. So
I see. So it's kind of like, I can imagine that you're really interested. I mean, of course, who would not be interested in working with a blogger that has a lot of traffic? That's kind of good. It gets your brand a lot of exposure.
Yeah.
No one's going to say no to that.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than that. Yeah.
Right. But then on the flip side, you could have a particular blogger that has maybe a lot of engagement on their site, or maybe they reach a certain target audience that you're trying to tap into. Is that kind of an example?
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So I just think the reason I like to point that out is because I do feel like a lot of bloggers, feel like, okay, well, there's no chance I'm going to get to work with a brand, and they kind of close the door. It reminds me actually of the time when I was applying to graduate school, and I was reading up on how to go through it and which schools to choose, and it actually said, don't you be the admission committee. So if there's a school you want to go to, don't talk yourself out of it before you even apply. Let the admission committee decide, and then, it's out of your hands at that point, but, go ahead and apply.
Absolutely. Yeah. I completely agree.
Okay, cool. Because you just don't know what things, for example, and you're just representing one brand. I mean, there are a lot of brands out there, and they all have different criteria, and so they may be looking for the target audience that your blog represents. So don't you be the one that makes that decision.
Exactly. I say it all the time to my friends when they're looking for different jobs. So
yes.
Same thing,
Yes. Okay. I guess we're done with this interview then, huh? No. We have lots to talk about. Okay, good. So you would encourage bloggers then that if they're interested in working with brands, not to feel discouraged if they don't have the huge numbers, but they probably need to be thinking about some kind of, something that distinguishes them. Like, we talked about engagement. Are there other things that you could think about for a site that they could emphasize that a brand would be interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially where, say you wanted to work with Stonyfield and you're like, oh, I have this really great recipe for mashed potatoes where I use yogurt as a substitution instead. Like just calling something simple out like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be that, but you can't strike out if you never swing. So just like pitching for a job.
Yeah, I get it. So even pitching specific recipes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, cool. So let's talk a little bit about, I don't want you to name any names unless you just really want to, but can you describe some situations, like maybe some, bloggers that you've worked with, and again, don't name any names, but, examples of someone that you thought just did an amazing job that, they might have some, I don't know, tidbits for the rest of us to say, oh yeah, I should consider doing that kind of thing as well.
I would name names, but there's so many to name.
Yeah.
Every month, we feel this way every single month with our bloggers. They always generously deliver on their ends with their posts. We'll partner with other companies each month for our club members, where they get a chance to write about both Stonyfield and another company, and they're always so creative, and all of their ideas always just blow us away. And so if you're ever looking for something like that, just look at one of their posts. and they're true fans of Stonyfield, and you can really see that and feel that when you read their posts. So, I mean, they're like family to us. So they're the perfect example for something like that.
Oh, that's really good. And the thing I like about what I'm just hearing you say is like, it probably would be a good idea for bloggers to think about the brands they actually use. And those would be, the ones that they're passionate about. Reach out to them.
We're always saying that. I mean, when we're looking through, because people apply to be in our blogger clubs, we'll look through their blog and see, but like if we're a natural fit for them, like a lot of our bloggers have been feeding their children Yo Baby ever since like 6 months, and now their kids are teenagers, So it's just, it makes sense. So
yeah. And so I think I heard you say earlier that you have, basically a couple of different ways that you work with, like, in other words, a partnership with a blogger can be a long-term commitment as part of your blogger club, or it could also be kind of these one-time deals, or, maybe 1 or 2 times or something like that. So I point that out because I feel like a blogger could look at you and say, oh, well, you've already got the bloggers that you work with, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't try to reach out to you anyway. Is that right?
No, yeah, because we definitely work with bloggers outside of our clubs as well all the time. I mean, in our clubs, it's like a long-term arrangement where they can opt in and opt out. But we always want to stay in contact with people, all the bloggers that we work with, because we could work with them at any point,
Right, exactly. And what about a blogger that, let's say, a lot of bloggers will talk about this as a tactic to get catch the eye of a brand they want to work with, where they will create a recipe and they will use that brand. Let's say, like you were talking about mashed potatoes, and I can imagine, maybe mashed potatoes is not a great example. Let's say I make a blueberry muffin recipe and I use, your blueberry yogurt. And so an example would be like, they would, hashtag or call your attention to the recipe, and they would do this completely for free. And then, as just kind of a way of reaching out, maybe, showcasing their photography, showcasing the way they write their posts and their reach and that kind of thing. Do you see that as a good strategy for a blogger to reach the brand's attention?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as outreach, we have a lot of bloggers reach out, but if we see someone use that in like a picture or a post, like we see everything on social that we're tagged in. So it definitely gets our attention, and then we'll obviously click on that blog and look at them and be like, oh, they look like they'd be a really good fit to do this. And especially if we like an email from them after that, we're like, oh, we just saw your picture. So it all just makes sense. All just goes into play.
So follow up something like that with an email saying, hey, I hope you caught the recipe I just posted and used your product with. Definitely,
because that's the difference between them and just like a fan or a consumer, because we have a lot of people who will just tag us in a lot of photos, but someone wants to work with us, you should email.
Okay, so have you ever had a situation where, again, not naming any names, but maybe a blogger didn't do kind of some things that you kind of hoped that they would have, maybe, or I don't know. I was just thinking like examples for people to kind of put on their list, don't do these things.
Thankfully, I really have never had any bad experiences when working with bloggers.
Oh, that's good.
And I mean, I don't foresee any happening. But I've never really had a bad experience, thankfully. So
that's good then. I mean, I can imagine where somebody could miss a deadline or, not communicate very well. That's always can be a problem sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely. Open communication is like one of our biggest things when we're working, not just with bloggers or any company. So if there's no open communication, that would definitely be a concern or a problem. So
right. So if someone finds themselves behind, I mean, life happens. There could be some situation that happens, your camera breaks or somebody gets sick in your family or whatever. As long as you're communicating with the brand, that's pretty much what matters.
Exactly, because I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, and human error happens, and so we're understanding. We're regular people too. We're not going to be like, no, you need to have that today. We're very understanding when it comes to deadlines. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk for a second. I know we've talked a little bit about outreach, and I mean, when I say outreach, I'm talking about kind of like the pitch level of a partnership where someone's trying to become engaged with you and they want to work with you. What are some ideas of, we talked about, they could use one of your products and send you an email. Do you have any other ideas? Like, for example, have you ever had anybody reach out and ask for coupons? Or I'm just kind of curious if you've had some ideas of, what bloggers could do to kind of get your attention.
Definitely. Yeah, we've had all of that. Actually, all of those happen before. People just reaching out saying, like, I can't keep the yogurt on my shelf in my fridge. My kids just keep eating it. And we definitely understand. Yeah, I work directly with bloggers. So if I have someone reach out, like, I respond directly. So
that's good. Okay, good. So, okay, now let's imagine that the campaign is in process. Are there some things that you like to see from bloggers when a campaign is active, like they're working on the post, you want to have emails from them or things like that?
Absolutely. And like I said before, open communication constantly and just honesty. Normally we're in talks from the beginning to the end with the bloggers, so there isn't much that is a surprise to us. We don't want anything to be a surprise to us, I should say.
Yeah.
And we'll give them any information they need up front or ways to talk about organic, if they want to talk about that in their post. So we always make sure they're fully equipped before the campaign starts.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, I feel like I've been in some campaigns myself where, I don't know, sometimes things feel like they get switched out in the middle of the campaign. Like, okay, we want a picture of the brand with this happening, or, and it's like, kind of be frustrating from the influencer side, especially if I'm working ahead and I've already got that particular recipe shot.
I bet. You're like, I already did this.
Yes. I mean, so that kind of goes both ways, where that communication, it's really important. I love that you're talking about how you're, talking about organic and, giving, even providing some of that language for the blogger if they want to use it. That's so cool.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so what about follow-up? Because this is something that always intrigues me. I have a consulting background, and so, it's always nice as a consultant that you give some kind of follow-up report to your business that you've worked with. And so I wonder, if our bloggers doing that the same when they're working with brands. Like, I could imagine some kind of follow-up report that says, here's how many shares that were out on social media. Here's the kind of engagement that was on this post. Do you typically get something like that?
Absolutely. I just hopped off a call before this, actually, with a follow-up just a follow-up call where we go over metrics and the general resonation with the blogger's audience, maybe comments from fans. But yeah, just a general overview of how it all went. Because when we pass that along to the rest of our marketing team, it can greatly increase the chances of working again with that same blogger, Yeah,
I like that. I think somebody mentioned that on the panel too at Chop Conference, that even if something happens a few months after, like let's say a blogger's working with you and then a couple months later they get, I don't know, maybe it gets picked up by Huffington Post or something like that, to send an email to brand to let them know, hey, I just wanted to let you know that my post just got picked up by Huffington Post. And I think that's a good way to stay in touch with the brand as well.
Absolutely. Personally, I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
I would love to have that follow-up, yeah.
And I think a lot of times, I'm speaking for myself personally, I can jump to some conclusions and maybe forget that the brand doesn't actually see that stuff, so even sometimes I followed up with a brand when I've gotten, an email that's a really positive comment about the recipe. I love sharing that kind of thing with the brand because it helps them realize, oh yeah, this was, it was good to work with Marley on that. And so I feel like, those are the kind of examples of positive follow-up that an influencer could provide to the brand.
Exactly. And what you post isn't just going to go away once the campaign with you and the brand ends. It's out there for good now. So
yes,
they always want to know, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so I realized just in talking with you, this question comes to mind, and I should have actually asked it in the pitch section. So we're just going to improvise here. What are your thoughts on, when bloggers put together those, sheets that I can't even think of the name of them right now, where it talks about their stats and how many followers they have.
Oh, like a media kit?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times people will say, when you send a pitch, go ahead and put your media kit with that. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've heard pros and cons to it.
I personally think it's a pro for us because we can see things we've done in the past, or I mean, if your articles did get picked up by HuffPo or BuzzFeed, I think that's always interesting for us to see. And it also can give us a good idea of what type of reader you have on your blog, which is obviously what we're looking for. But I definitely think a media kit is good. And I mean, if you don't include it, a brand will ask for it if they want it. So It's really up to you, I think.
But maybe not. I mean, I think I've heard some people say try to avoid that discussion of money in the very first, couple of exchanges between the brand and the influencer, and let that be something that comes up. I don't know. It needs to feel like a natural part of like, how much are we going to get paid for this, or how much, do you pay? That's got to be part of the negotiations, obviously, but it seems like you got to do some foundational work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both parties know that's going to be in a discussion at some point. Yeah. But those first few emails that you're interchanging are just you getting to know each other and see if it's a good fit. Yeah. So, I mean, it'll come along at some point.
Right, exactly. And I've heard some bloggers, like I'm trying to think, Carrie Ann Cheney, she's with the site, what is her? Oh, Sweet Basil. I'm blanking on the name of her site. It's a beautiful site. And she was talking about how initially bloggers can even work for just coupons. Like it's just a way to, free product in a way that it's a way to get to know each other. I know some people will, conversely say, don't ever do that because it belittles yourself. But I kind of feel like I could see where, if you do it right, there's, it's kind of like getting to know each other a little bit, and it's not such a bad deal.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, every blogger is different, and I mean, however they want to run their blog is up to them. But we definitely work with bloggers who do that, or bloggers who only want monetary deals. And so it's a little bit of both. Mixed. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so this is another question that just came to my mind. Do you have tips for bloggers based on the art of negotiation? Because I do feel like a lot of bloggers I would put myself in this boat as much as I've taken classes on negotiation and I totally get it. But somehow when you're negotiating for yourself, it feels a little daunting at times. I'm just curious if you've seen some that do it well, and if you have any feedback for the rest of us on how we can get better at it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a different ballgame from a brand perspective as far as that goes. But I mean, we have our budgets as well, so negotiation definitely is going to happen, and you gotta work together to get the end goal. But if you really want to work with a brand and they really want to work with you, I think it will happen,
Yes, you'll find that right sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it can be nerve-wracking. I think for a lot of people, like they're afraid to throw this number out that, what if the brand just doesn't respond, because it's just too high of a number or something like that. But I imagine, like you say, if the brand really wants to work with you and you throw the number out, they're going to counteroffer.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess it's like, it's a little bit like, it's a little bit like dating at that point, right? Like, if people really like each other, if the person doesn't call back, there probably just wasn't that much interest to begin with, and just move on.
If a company ghosts you, then you know. I'm just kidding.
I know. I like it. But, I'm just speaking from the time when I was single. Like, there were times that, like, I would think this man was, like, the one. I needed to meet this person. And then it's like, it didn't work out, and I would be so depressed. But then I met the right man for my life, and it's, like, so, like,
he
so
wasn't
perfect.
Meant to be.
Yes. So I guess that's what I'm kind of thinking. Like, if you're putting yourself out there and trying to work with brands, and sometimes it feels like it's not working out, it doesn't mean that, you need to give up entirely. It just means keep trying, and the right one is going to come along.
Exactly. Yep. All those emails is just a bunch of online dating. That's all it is.
And just look at it as practice, right? Like, I'm saying this to myself as much as I'm saying it to anybody else, but, what does it hurt if you reach out to a brand and they say they're not, for example, you may be full up for the year of the number of people that you're working with, and you're not taking any new people, but it still is a way of, getting to know somebody, and you might work with them next year.
Absolutely. Yep.
So don't be shy.
Better than not trying at all.
Yes, love it. Very good. Okay, so based on your experience working with bloggers, I mean, I know that, you're not a blog. Maybe do you have a blog?
I did in college, but it was music related, so
Okay.
It's not really applicable.
Okay, got you. But so, I mean, still, you've been around a lot of successful bloggers, and I think you probably have gone to a lot of conferences too. Do you have just like some tips that you would share with people on how bloggers can grow their site?
Yeah, definitely. And I also, and I mean, all honesty, I manage our yogurt dish blog here at Stonyfield, so it's not as frequent as everyone else's blogs, but I mean, it's a great blog, and
yes,
we do a lot of recipes on it. But I mean, we'll work with brands on that blog as well, and then share the post on Facebook. But I think working with brands for anyone is a great way to build a following, because the brands will share your photos with their fans, and that could reach a whole new type of demographic for you, and a whole new group of followers. So, I mean, I think personally, I may be biased, but I mean, I think it's a great way to build a following. Because even if we're working on a post and we say we used Bob's Red Mill oats in this post and we tag Bob's Red Mill, then we get to have some of their followers see the post as well. And I think it benefits everyone. Plus, I mean, we're good friends with them, so.
Absolutely. And you're probably linking back to that blogger too then, right?
Yep, exactly.
And so all those external links, that's wonderful SEO juice. So I see what you're saying. There are side benefits beyond just the monetary compensation.
Exactly.
I like that.
Exactly. Yeah, we're constantly sharing our Stonyfield bloggers links on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, just because they come up with so many good things.
I love that because it's kind of like looking at working with brands as also a way to grow your site. And that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Very good. Okay. I just have a couple of fun questions I like to ask people at the end of the interview. So
Sure.
What's one food item you can't live without? And I just know that you're going to say yogurt, and I feel like you should expand beyond that.
I will say yogurt, but I mean, I drank the Kool-Aid when I started working at Stonyfield. I put yogurt in everything, pasta sauces, bread. I do baked goods. My parents used to yell at me because I'd make so many rich desserts and bring them over to their house when I visit. And now I make them with yogurt so they'll eat them.
Oh, nice.
But now maybe...
Is there something besides yogurt that's your favorite food?
Yeah, like pizza.
Okay.
I mean, you can't go wrong with pizza.
And you don't put yogurt on pizza, do you?
Pizza. God, no. God, no.
Although I used to go to a pizza place here in Kansas City that they would braid the crust and they would serve it with honey so that you could, when you got to the crust, you could actually dip the crust in the honey. It was so good.
Oh, man. Yeah. When someone asks what's my favorite food, it's just all food. Can I just say all food?
All of the above.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's good. Okay. What's the favorite app on your phone?
I will say Instagram. My friends will say Snapchat.
Okay. You like Instagram the best. Do you like the Instagram stories then?
I do. I prefer Snapchat still, but I love posting photos on Instagram.
Yes.
I love all the different people you can reach and all the different hashtags you can use to reach people and all the filters. And I think it's a great way to share photos with your friends.
Yeah. I have to say, of the social media sites, I'm beginning to realize the love of Instagram. It's like, first of all, you don't feel obligated to share everybody else's stuff like you do on the other sites, and then
Exactly.
I know what to expect when I go to your page or I go to, someone else's page. I know they're going to be sharing delicious recipes or, I don't know. I kind of like that. Yeah.
Instagram is, I don't know. I feel like you used to always update your Facebook status. Now it's like you post an Instagram pic to let people know what you're doing in your life. So
yeah, it's true. That's true. And there's this emphasis on having really cool pictures, and I like that too. So it's kind of fun. Okay. Do you have time for TV at all? And if you do you have a favorite show you'd like to share with us?
I don't have much time for TV. When I do, it's like right before bed, I'll put on Netflix and I'll rewatch New Girl. I'm obsessed with New Girl, and I deeply resonate with the main character, Jessica Day.
That is a good show. Very funny.
Yes.
I'm like an evangelist for Jane the Virgin. Have you seen that one?
Oh, I think I've seen a couple episodes of both. Yeah, they're very good.
Yes, very.
I have to have sarcasm in my shows.
Yeah. And we just finished watching Stranger Things, and I don't know, it just seems like so many shows are so dark and scary and heavy, and so I need something light after that,
Exactly, yes. Then, you watch your Stranger Things, which is epic, and then you watch your New Girl afterwards to get a laugh.
Yeah, so just like not to have anybody die is nice too,
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah, it's a big stress relief,
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, so how can people find you? I have 2 questions for you, actually, as we're closing out this interview. How can people find you online? But also, I wanted to ask you about your blogger club. Is this something that just anybody can sign up for? Or, is it kind of a restricted opening kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can apply to be in it. It's www.stonyfield.com/newblogger. And that will send us an application directly, and we go over them monthly and reach out to people. Or you can find us on any of our handles at Stonyfield on every channel.
Excellent. So. I will put that link in the show notes page for everybody so they can join to be a part of your program.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Mairead, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you, Marley. So did I.
Thanks to Mairead Dunphy for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to go to choppedpodcast.com to learn more about today's show. Thanks to everyone for your reviews of the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and any social media site where you care to share it. I love it. Keep those emails coming too. I love hearing from you. You know that. So you inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.